Welcome back to the One More K podcast. My name is Marcus, and we are here on episode number 28. We're on the roll as usual, week by week. And also I can say today, good morning, Ned. We're on the same time zone. No, you're 1 hour behind. Haha, this time you are in Scotland.
We have crossed over from the world. From you being on the other side of the world, we've come to vaguely the same place. But yes, you're in Germany. I'm in Scotland, which I absolutely adore.
And we are joined today by our special guest, Grant Giles, all the way from down under in Australia, very different time zone. Good afternoon, Grant. Is it still afternoon?
It certainly is afternoon. It's 4:06 p.m. So thanks for having me here, guys. I'm stoked to be here.
It's awesome. We have more people from Asia here. That is great. Grant is a coach, performance coach. She is well known in the industry to be one of the key people to coach triathletes and Ironman and women. And digging into it, I thought, why don't we kick off by the story of how Grant and Ned met? Because I heard some rumors that you guys worked together in the past. So I was very curious to hear that kind of story, because Ned, to be honest with you, has been talking about Grant for, I don't know how many, almost a decade now, I feel like. And he's been raving about Grant's posts and coaching and mental frameworks. And Ned, you got to Kona, and you slow fart getting to Kona is quite something. So I'm like, what happened there that you got to Kona, Grant and Ned? What's the story?
Steady. I'll give me 1 minute and then I'll hand over to Grant. Slow fart. Oh, one day I'm going to kick your young butt. We'll take on a race of 100 miles. I'll show you how slow I am. I 15, 12, 13 years ago was being an Ironman, trying to get to Kona. I was vaguely in the realm of qualifying, but not really. I was kind of close. And then one day I was training. I live in Singapore, as people know. And I was doing some training with a group of like 30 dudes. And it was meant to be a slow ride. And all of a sudden, like 20 dudes burst out the front. And I normally go with them to show that, look how strong I am. And 4 people hung back. Brian McGovern, a guy who was coached by Grant, I didn't know at the time. Asad Atamimi, a guy called Ian Tate. But basically all these guys slowed down. And I stuck with them. And then I looked around them. I'm like, what have these guys all got in common? I'm like, oh shit, these are the 4 guys of the whole group who've been to Kona. And at least 1, if not 2, were coached by Grant. And they were like, yeah, you want to go to Kona? You got to get your head right. And so I was introduced to Grant, and that's how I came along. I mean, Grant, I don't know what your story is apart from the fact your story from me, but I emailed you because I realized, oh shit, those dudes up the road, they're not going to Kona. It's the dudes back here that Grant talked to that are going to Kona. So I did. Grant, was that, apart from me?
Yeah, it's funny.
Go for it.
Yeah, I was just going to say it was a while ago now, but I do remember that period, and I remember you as being the most passionate human being that I think I've ever met, and I think that's why we kind of, the segue has been so good, because we were both in the same boat in that regard.
Yeah, it really was.
How was it to train Ned? Was he receptive? Was he kind of hard to train? What was his like ability?
He was super receptive, and see, the thing is with I kind of test people out with the psychology side of things. Some people resonate, some people don't. Ned took to it like a duck to water when I started to introduce the fact that a lot of our endurance and our resilience and our capacity to absorb pain is all wrapped up in the way that we look at how it's happening psychologically, the filter that we look through. Ned took to it like a duck to water, so it was the perfect foil.
I remember at the time, so Grant had coached, and we'll talk about this mindset later once we really get into it, but Brian said to me, and I hope this is okay to say, Grant, he said, Grant's not for everybody. I said, why? He said, because he's going to train your brain as much as your body. And for some people's ego can't let their brain be trained. And he told me going in, Grant, I don't know if I told you this, Brian said, look, don't question it. Do it. And I gave my own framework. I remember saying to myself, whenever I'm training, I had this idea. Whatever Grant tells me to do, he knows. I unzip my head, I take out my brain, I put it on the side, and I just do. Don't think. I just do. That's it. Yes, I'm excited and passionate. And I remember one time, I don't know if I tested you back, I wanted to do a little half marathon during the training. And you said something like, you can do that if you want to. I wouldn't recommend you do it. This is the path we're on, mate. And I was like, good point. I don't need to go and test myself in a little half marathon just because somebody else was doing it. I wanted to kick their butts, But yeah, look, I think once we get into this to chat today, your thoughts on mindset are, they're not. I'm going to say while they might not everybody can understand them, everybody should understand them.
Nice. I'm excited to dig into this. We're gonna have a quick news section coming up in order to wrap up the latest industry news in trail running. So give me 5 minutes to cover, I think, only one or two news we have on the news docket, but then we are going all into the mindset. We're going all into what we have to say about coaching. And also I'm curious about the business behind coaching, by the way. That is, of course, part of the podcast. Ned and Grant, we had a little acquisition in this ultra running world. We had the news part of the world being acquired. So maybe you do know the Ultra Running magazine. Maybe you've heard of it before. It was acquired by Steep Life Media. It's it's a part of the Ara Viper Running kind of company, which is very well known in the US, for example. But it's interesting for me what that acquisition means, that now this Ultra Trail Running magazine is getting acquired by Steep Life Media. And that is, again, every kind of news that is about acquisition in this world, we, of course, cover. Ned, what did you make of this acquisition? What do you think what's happening?
So I have lots of old copies of Ultra Running magazine. Back in the good old, I was a subscriber. I got it posted to my house. It was always the same. It was very poorly laid out. I say that with all my love for it. It was just walls of text of races and stuff. It got better. And it's been around for 40 years. Ultra Running magazine is 40 years old, but it was definitely kind of dying. It was old media in a new media world. Clearly, Jamil Khoury is the man. I think it's fantastic. Did you notice that I think you sent it to me. Mark, didn't I notice? You sent it to me because I know you noticed. Normally acquisitions in our world get met with boos and, oh, it sucks. It's UTMB Ironman. Everyone loves Jamil. It's a cool little magazine. He probably didn't pay much. I think he'll make it great. He'll turn it into a video digital mag. I think it's fantastic. And the only thing, I'd love to know what he paid. I don't think he paid much.
No, I mean, it probably was like a hobby project for some and some maybe business for others, but they have 7,500 subscribers, which, if you're thinking of ad revenue, that can't be that much. So it's a nice little niche thing, but I think it could grow from here much more.
So you met Dylan Bowman when you were at Western States. I mean, he's created a little media world. There's a world in media in Ultra now. There's money to be made here, telling stories. And Jamil's a master. Jamil is a mastermind of this. Yeah, I think he's going to be a man that turns this into something. We should reach out. Let's get Lecker on it.
We're going to reach out and understand this acquisition more. On the other news, we have a new documentary, another one, of course, being released last week, or 2 weeks ago, I think already, which was about Courtney Dauwalter. She released a 15 minutes documentary, which was in partnership with Salomon. You sent me a comment, Ned. What was your comment about this documentary?
Well, I don't know the exact comment because I can't remember yesterday, so I don't really remember exactly what I wrote. But the general theme of it was that, oh my God, this is how you make a documentary, Jim. Jim and Hoka, watch this. This 15 minutes, I actually put it on Facebook. I wrote, if you like running, watch this documentary. If you don't like running, watch this documentary. It's not about running. It's about how to be a great human. This is running at its best. This is documentary making at its best, which is a beautiful story about how Courtney loves life and running just happens to be the thing she does. Marcus, I assume you watched it, right?
Yes, it was easy to watch. I mean, 15 minutes, it's easy to digest. unlike other documentaries, and we've been ranting about some others, with, for example, Jim Wormsley, which are just so hard to watch because it's just like a hawker advertisement. But this one with Salomon, which is not featured, it was more about the team and the team effort by Courtney Walters' efforts in last year doing Hard Rock, Western States, and UTMB, winning all of them actually in the same year.
So, yeah, it is. I'm excited. Like the world of stories, and this is what Jamil will do with Ultra Running Magazine. They'll start to make great stories. But yeah, whoever made this, and remember when we had Sam Harvey on, the guy who made Breaking Point was not a runner. Quite often, if you need to make the stories not about running, because when it's just a, hey, I run in shoes, nobody cares. Anyway, yeah, not a lot of racing this week, but just some cool media stuff that we saw. But yeah, that is the news of Ultra.
All right, now we go back to Grant. And where do we start, Grant? I think we talked about mindset. So how did you establish those frameworks for mindset as a coach? I'm very curious how you came about it. What's your story to come to this point of super intelligence?
I wouldn't call it super intelligence. I'd call it more like awareness. Yeah, and I guess it started when I became aware of my own triggers. When I was racing, I raced professionally as a triathlete, and in that process, I found a whole lot of buried stuff that I really hadn't dealt with. I really hadn't looked at in terms of feeling anxious and self-seeding, or not feeling like I had enough presence, or I was overwrought, or I was nervous. And it got to the point where I became hyper aware of it. And I ended up going to see a psychologist who did hypnotherapy and visualization. And that made the world of difference for me as an athlete. It didn't fix it, but it certainly alerted me to the fact that this was going on inside me. And until I started to have that self-inquiring reflection of myself, I didn't even know that was actually happening to my performances. And when I came out of triathlon and went into coaching, then it became a passion, because I started to see it on pool deck. I started to see it at the running track. I started to see it in terms of cycling. I started to see it with people's feeling nervous before races and all these types of things. And then it became a curiosity, as much in myself as in my athletes. And I go, okay, well, what's the possibility if we change the way we look at what we do? And we know this is difficult. We set goals. The goals are uncomfortable. And then if you look at human nature, the human nature is to come out against the goals that you set for yourself. I don't like the discomfort. I don't like the pain. I don't like, the hurt. But it's like, well, why are we setting these goals if we're going to come out against ourselves? So that's where the curiosity really got going. And then that drove an internal passion within myself to find out more about myself, which it is still, the ramifications of that are still going on. And I believe that if you're going to really evolve as a human being, if you're going to really delve down into the nature of what we're actually doing here, that's a never-ending process, right? And that's why I love it so much, because curiosity never ends, the passion never ends, and the journey never ends.
Grant, I mean, look, we can talk about this all day, but that thing you said, that we put ourselves in pain, but we're anxious about it. Why do we do it?
Because we love it, because we love the intensity, right? And then this is the thing. We set these goals, and I still do it too. I paddle a lot, endurance paddle, and I do really stupid things in the open ocean that you shouldn't do. And I keep going, why do I keep doing this? It's the intensity. But more than the intensity, it's the aliveness. I think that's the key thing. It's the sense of aliveness in it. Like I am here. I am vital. I'm fully present. I'm forced to be fully present because I'm with something that's really, really uncomfortable. And I think that's why we set the bar, because we actually like the aliveness in it. So if we can come to a place where we can look at things like nerves and accept them fully, then the nerves can if we can embody the nerves, then the nerves can actually expand us, help us to grow rather than that becoming a contraction, if that makes sense.
And so Grant, when we started training, this sense that you were training my mind, but and I really got it. Like, you used to send me stuff and I read it, and it took me a while, but when I got it, just like you've been through this journey and you get it, right? But as I talk to other people, not many people do. We're so fixated on training our bodies that we forget to train our mind. Yet it's like, because I'm over on the other side of the fence and because I see it from your angle, it seems so obvious. Why is it so hard for people to understand that your body is going nowhere without your brain? Why do you think people struggle to get that?
I don't think they want to. Like, even for me, in business, it's still a hard sell. Interestingly, combat sports are starting to. I've been reached out to by MMA fighters, coaches of MMA fighters, Muay Thai, because their safety's at risk, and I think our safety's at risk too. And it's like, if there's something really scary, like if there's a boogie monster, the last thing you want to do is look under the bed and see if the boogie monster's there, right? And we all know that when we start to delve into the darker sides of our psyches, it's like looking for the boogie monster, and then you come face to face with that boogie monster. It's not pretty, but it's also very clarifying and very freeing. So the difficulty is to get people across the line, to get them to open Pandora's box, to look at the dark side of our psyches, what's in there, and then unpack it so that when we come up against real discomfort in terms of the physical, because we've dealt with our psychological discomfort, we can deal with our physical discomfort in the same way. If I can accept my psychological discomfort, I can accept my physical discomfort. And then the next layer of it is the embodiment. Oh, okay, here's pain. Can I embody pain? What does pain actually feel like if I don't label it, if I don't put tags and labels and endless stories on top, and I just take the pain into the body and feel it and allow it to be there and to let it circulate rather than try and stuff it down like I stuff my psychological darkness down.
You know, Grant, and Marcus, I'll let you jump in a minute. Please do, because otherwise me and Grant could go all day. You, when I qualified for Kona, you sent me, and I don't know if you had the same one page, or you sent me really what you just said, because we'd been thinking about it. You said, we were talking about it, this embodiment of pain, and you just let it be. You just let it be part of you, because so often people are like, oh, I don't know why I race. They said, oh, it was painful at the end or whatever. You said to me, when you wake up in the morning, look at yourself in the mirror and tell yourself, remember all of those things that you've done for this race. Get it all in you and then put it away. Put it calm, go out onto the race. And for all of the swim, all of the bike, and up to 20K on the run, just be calm, right? Just don't let the pain, just accept it. Yeah. Just let it be part. And then all of that, what you felt, all of what you've done, let it out at the end and go for it. And I remember thinking, you didn't send me anything about how to run, how to bike, or how to swim on the race day. You only told me how to use my brain in the right passages on race day, which... It's a really interesting part that when you say, so I felt that, but maybe to the listeners, it's hard to get it across. When you say, let the pain be part of you, how do people do that? How do you accept pain? Well,
I'll tell you what, like I still run, right? And this is interesting. I've got a very close friend who's a dance teacher. I've never danced in my life. and she teaches embodiment as well. And when you allow the movement to become an embodiment, it goes out of the brain actually, and the body creates a flow on its own without your participation. In the context we're talking about, like in the middle of an ultra, or even in training, I still run, right? Like I love to run nature trails, and when I run nature trails and I take my head in there, and it's uncomfortable as hell. Like I just can't stop these repetitive thoughts. But if I go, let's just say I go into my legs, and I ask myself a very, very simple question. What does it feel like to run? What's here? Is it blunt force trauma? What sort of pain is it? Is it prickly? Is it hot? Is it cold? If you start asking those questions, the answers start to come back in the felt sense. And what I found out about, especially running, is that there's this prickly excitement inside the body at a very, very fine level where all the cells are pinging, ping, 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 ping. And when you start really focusing on that, you forget that it's hurting. And it's like, oh, this is just lovely. Like, this just feels fantastic. Now I actually know why I do this. And it's like, it is the most simple thing. How many people listening to this who train running actually pay attention to the soles of their feet in contact with the ground? I'm scheming none. Like, we're up here, we're not in the body, we're not paying attention to what it feels like and what we like about it. Crazy thing about the embodiment is if you really pay attention to what's happening in your legs, then all the little nuances start to come out. If it's hot and there's a tiny little crosswind blowing, all of a sudden you're aware of that crosswind and the cooling effect of it. Whereas if you're up in your head, it's hot as hell, and you don't notice the cooling effect. So one is a judgment and one is a fact. And so it is the simplest common denominator. What does it feel like to run? And you just keep sending that invitation out again and again and again to remind yourself, when I feel what's happening, I am present. When I'm in my mind, I'm past tense. By the time I have a thought, that thought's already gone. So it's just a really good way of anchoring into what we love about running and being present with it.
Amazing. This is gold. I picked up a few keywords, which you mentioned hypnotherapy, you mentioned nerves, which is kind of neuroscience, you mentioned awareness, which for me is kind of Buddhism, Zen-like. So you're mixing a lot of different things here together, which I find fascinating. Almost like different, whether it's biology, whether it's, philosophy, whether it's alternative medicine with hypnotherapy, all different tools, let's call them tools for now. For your athletes, do you have a toolbox where you choose from those tools? How do you customize it for your training that the athlete can perform and unlock all the potential?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I have a toolbox. I wrote this thing called the cheat code, which is a little thing I run off. Like I personally, I studied hypnotherapy. I studied strategic psychotherapy. Then, I've done my own meditation. I've gone to India and sat on mountains. Buddhism. It's all this big mixture of different modalities. Philosophy. I love philosophy, and so I use it on let's call it a biopsy case. Like, the person comes to me, I kind of assess where they're at, how rigid they are, how open to suggestion they are, how open to change they are, whether they can reframe thinking, and then I make a decision about how I'm going to work with that human. With some people, I'm just their coach. They don't want to touch this side of it, and that's totally okay. I go, all right, that's totally okay by me. Like, I've coached a lot of athletes. I know how to do that, but it is an individual basis. And in the same way that I treat my own training and coach, I treat each human being with a different set of tools. this person needs this person needs this. Someone might need meditation. Someone might need active meditation. Somebody might need to focus on the embodiment side. Somebody might need to work through reframing. Someone might need to look at aspects of their anxiety or they're overwhelmed by nerves. We're all unique, and the fascinating thing is there's no such thing as broken. We're all just unique, and that's what makes this whole thing just so exciting and never ending.
You said, Grant, what a great, I love that. For some people, I'm just a coach. That's so good because, like, you weren't for me. And when I say that, it sounds bad. I'm like, I got a coach. He wasn't a coach. He changed my brain. Can I ask, are you normally just a coach? Are you normally just a coach? Or are you normally somebody that is doing what you do, which is reframing people's perceptions?
I do snow jobs, Ned. Like I coach people, and it's almost sometimes it's subliminal, and I'll start sliding pieces in. Maybe we should look here. Maybe we should feel this. Maybe we should, and people start to gravitate more towards what they're feeling than what they're assessing. So, and I'm sure you guys are as aware as I am at the moment that AI is making its presence felt in programming terms and in scheduling terms, and we're able to assess flight time, power with running, power with biking. There's swim meters. It's endless. Garmin's. It just doesn't ever stop. But there's also a disassociation occurring because it's past tense. And this is my argument with the assessing. The assessing's brilliant. We need to do it, and we can do it. But the assessing is past tense. So we need to come here. We need to come present into what we're doing. So I am subliminal in delivering that message over and over and over and over again until people pick up on it. And to be honest, most people will eventually gravitate towards it. Most people will eventually come to it in their own way if you keep pointing. And there's a difference between pointing and directing. When you direct somebody, they don't want to know about it. But if you keep pointing, eventually people will go, well, this guy keeps saying this. I'm paying him to give me the best information. Maybe I should just follow this road. And most people get there in the end, in their own way.
How much is coaching others also coaching yourself?
Oh, look, the reason I do what I'm doing is because the writing, for instance, the blogging, that started about 5 years ago in earnest, and that has been my biggest teacher. And people think, oh, you write these articles. They're not actually, most of the time, they're things that I need to know most. I write about the things that I need to know most, and they're shared, and people really appreciate that. So that is my teacher. The coaching is a massive teacher. It's such a teacher because you can't do a job like this without having your own stuff up in the window. Like, you can't advise or suggest something to someone else without asking yourself the question, do I do that? Am I taking a spoonful of my own medicine? And I end up saying that to people all the time. I need to take a spoonful of my own medicine, and I do. And that's why I love this work.
You put this out on Facebook, so I hope you're okay to talk about it. You help people reframe their minds because you've been through pain as an athlete. You've known what it takes to train as an athlete, but you nearly died in the ocean just recently. You had an experience that
I did.
You had an experience that you wrote about, and if you're okay to share about it, but I'm interested in how that reframed. Does that make, because I read everything you write, and I've been noticing, certainly not a different, but so my question is this: maybe take us through what happened in the ocean, but you can't really think about the way you frame pain without the reality that you've been through a lot yourself.
Yeah, look, I don't think, from day to, I didn't have the easiest of childhoods. Like, and I'm quite open about that. Like, I was bullied relentlessly at school, and I think it sets you up for trauma. And then things happen in your life, like I've been through marriage separations, and and that whole deal, and it kind of tears down the old modes, the old broken down modes. And this experience in the ocean was just the biggest of wake up calls, because I started in triathlon in the ocean. Like, I grew up surfing, traveled, thought I knew the ocean inside out, and you never know the ocean inside out. It always has the last word. And strangely enough, I ended up, I paddle this bar close to home that when it has a really strong outgoing tide, it creates this wave, and you can ride it on a stand-up paddleboard. And stand-up paddleboard's 14 feet long. It's made for open ocean, very narrow. And I love doing it. But on this particular day, there was a 2-meter outgoing tide and a huge incoming east swell, like 10 foot. And I blew it. I ate it in the mouth of the bar, and the current dragged me out into the ocean, snapped the 14-foot board, and then I had this 14-foot dead weight stuck to my leg, being towed down by the undercurrent of the outgoing tide, with this 10-foot easterly swell on top of it, and I couldn't get up. And it held me down for so long that I nearly blacked out. And then I came up, and then I continued to get more waves, and then I thought, I'm gone. Like, I actually got to the point where I thought, I'm finished. And it was such a strange feeling of like, is this how it ends? And at the last second, it spat me out into the ocean, and everything was going completely black. So my brain was shutting down. And then I got sucked out into the ocean, and I had to be rescued. And it was the biggest wake-up call for me, because the next moment is not a given. The next moment, that, this future that we obsess over doesn't actually exist in time and space, and nor does the past. And so there was like this moment that didn't really surface until weeks later, where I just realized that, unless you live fully present and you live for the moment, you're not really truly living, and it is an experience like that is a real wake-up call. And the other part of the experience is never mess with Mother Nature. Never think that we are, it has the last say. It can take you out anytime, anywhere. You just don't have a say. And I think that is part of what I experienced, was the full surrender of knowing that I couldn't do anything about it at all, except fight for survival. And what's really interesting in the experience was the level of survival instinct that surfaced through that. Like the brain completely offline, the heart rate through the roof, the adrenaline, all the things that we avoid in anxiousness and nerves was there as an absolute lifesaver. And I'm so grateful that it was there. And so it's really helped me to look at states like anxiety and things like that in a different context. Oh, they actually can help us. Not only can they help us, they can save us. So those instinctual things are a necessity, and we should be grateful for them.
Think that experience made you a better person?
It made me a more present person. I'll tell you, Ned, it was quite a few months back now, maybe 3 months ago. And over that 3 months, that experience, it's been growing. That feeling of I just need to be present with where I'm at right now. And it doesn't matter what the discomfort is. If it's a financial stress, if it's a relationship stress, if it's any kind of stress, it's just to pay attention to the ground under your feet and just realize that the next moment's not a given. I should focus on where I am right now and be grateful for that, and be curious about it and excited about it and be passionate about it. And that's what we're here for. Like, that's why we're alive. And that's, that experience has helped me to come to terms with that truth. And, it's easy to wake up in the morning and feel down or depressed or blue about things. But these experiences, they either help us grow or they help us contract. And as you go down the line, and as you know as well, the more difficult experiences you have and you absorb, the more you realize I actually don't have a choice. I can absorb this, and not only can I absorb it, if I allow it and surrender to it, I can thrive in it.
So I'm glad, obviously, Grant, I'm glad you came through that. I mean, I read your Facebook post. I mean, you laid it out, man. Like, it definitely this did not sound like, oh, I nearly died. This sounded like you actually, were right there. But taking it, and the reason I asked you was a better person. So often when I hear, we talk about ultra long distance running, people talk about their race experience. Oh, am I going to get to the finish? And it really makes me think, in the present moment, that's not what they should be thinking about. When it's hard during a race, you're not going to die at mile 80 of a 100-mile race. But the same experience you had, those heightened experiences, to be present in that moment. So when it's really hard at mile 80 of a 100-mile race, while it's not as traumatic as nearly dying in the ocean, the reality is you are in this place where you just need to be. And I think if you could, it's kind of what you do, you bottle that sense of, don't think about the finish line, don't think about what you've done. You have to be in that present moment. That's what I remember, as you know, when in Kona, I was sick and I couldn't really race, but I got rid of all of that because I raced, but because you have to do what you just have to do what you can. I suppose, this sounds strange. I just thought about it. You were almost the perfect person to maybe die because you were ready to accept the lesson.
Look, I think when I was coaching you, I used to use the moniker, maximize the moment you're in. Just make the most of the moment you're in. That's all there is to it. And I think that's what we all can do at the 80-mile mark or 80-kilometer mark of an ultra, or the 80-mile mark of an ultra. We have a choice to bemoan what's happening, or we have a choice to get present with it and send out an invitation to the next moment by being here in this one. And then the other layer of it, you asked, am I a better person? I'm a more grateful person, and I'm a more loving person. So I can look at a situation or a discomfort and just go, I should be actually grateful for the fact that I'm here in this discomfort, because it's such there's such a prickly aliveness in that experience. And I think we get too wrapped up in the performance without being grateful and enough for the process itself. And gratitude is a powerful motivator. I think if you can find gratitude in discomfort, you can find motivation in discomfort. And that'd be my anchor in something like an ultra marathon.
Bringing some hot spicy conversation right now, and I'm truly biased here. I sometimes feel that ultra trail runners are a bit more zen than ego-driven triathletes and Ironman. There's no data behind it, I'm sure. Anyway, I was wondering how you work with, because you are famous for being a triathlon coach, how do you work with those egos of triathletes and Ironman? And do you want to take them also through an experience of breaking to make them a better person, better athlete? Because how do you manage those testosterone hormone-driven individuals. If you actually take them on board, there's another question. But yeah, how do you work with those people? Because they are optimizing for a business life, a family life, every single second, any gram of nutrition, and the bike matters. So how do you take them out of that data-driven world, which I feel like is all about triathlon, Ironman, into your coaching world? Like what do you do there to take them on this journey?
That's a good question. I take what I do for athletes most of the time is first up is to provide space for them to be themselves. I actually had this. I got this feedback from the 2016 70.3 world champion Tim Reed, who used to train with us in Lennox Head. Tim always kind of did his own thing, but he always worked in and he'd run things past me, and like we had a good relationship. And he said about that group at the time, there were like 15 full-time professional triathletes that were in Lennox Head, and we just had this group, and there were all different kinds of human beings in that. And he said the capacity and the ability that you brought was to provide the space for those people to be able to train in the same place at the same time, eating from the same trough without killing each other. And I think coaching is about providing space. I think it's about making people feel safe enough to be themselves. And then that gives them the ability to relax and down regulate, which is important because the nervous system is an important part of this puzzle. If you can encourage the nervous system to down regulate, people perform much better, regardless of what they've got going on, whether they're stressed by partners or work situations or whatever else. If somebody feels safe with you, they'll feel safe to open up. And I can say that about Lennox Head. The athletes would come to me with their problems. This is happening for me, and you don't even have to do anything. Most of the time, people just need an ear. And all athletes are human beings. They need an ear. They need to be heard. And when they're heard, their nervous systems get a chance to down regulate. And I'm no different to anybody else. Like I have a guy I go and see, it's sometimes a woman, and I need an hour where I just vent. I just talk about what's going on for me. And, it's like, God. And I sometimes I can walk out of there feeling like I weigh 20 kilos less, and they haven't said a word. All I was able to do was just express what was happening for me. I think coaching is a big part of that, allowing people to talk, allowing people to unpack, allowing people to down regulate and relax. I don't know if that answers the question.
No, it does. Thank you. I think that's,
yeah.
I mean, any athlete, whatever performance you're after, you need space to be aware. I hear you. And I'm also wondering if the greats, like, the ones who are winning Kona, they actually figured it out to have space, and then the mediocre ones, they just get stuck in their mind and they do the performance, and that's fine. But if you want to be great, you need to do another level up, especially mentally, because you can't reach that level of greatness just by physical effort.
Oh, Marcus, yeah, 100%. Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. Like we all know that you can take 20 people who have very, very similar physiology, very, very similar testing regimes, or they test similar to each other and they have the same capacities, and somebody is head and shoulders above the rest. You can absolutely guarantee that person's ability is their ability to absorb the discomfort that's coming at them without turning it into a story. So if you can find a way to not make a story of what's happening, your capacity to function at the highest level is far, far greater. And if you look at any great athlete, you'll see it. And sometimes intense personalities who seem like they're highly strung will perform at the top level. But when they actually cross that threshold onto that line, they're able to let go and become a flow. Yes, Zen, in flow with that process, in flow with that movement, and they're the people that go all the way. And if you pay attention, you'll hear it over and over and over again with truly great athletes. They all have that I want to say almost a stoic ability to be unique, to be themselves, and that's where a lot of my work is now. Let's not try and add anything to you. Let's subtract what's not original to you and find out what you're actually made of. Like, what's underneath all this rubble, all this stuff that we add to ourselves. Do we actually need it? I don't think we do. I think the ability of somebody to reach their maximum potential is the measure of their ability to be authentically themselves and to find a way to trust that. And that's how to get at your potential.
Dude, that phrase, subtract what is not original to you. That's so good.
That's exactly right. Not looking outwards, but looking inwards, where you're looking from. That's the place to concentrate on. That's where I would advise all athletes to look at. Stop looking out there for answers. Start looking from where you're looking from. What's the stories that you tell yourself that separate you and divorce you from your potential? Find out. It's not that difficult. You could write that down on a piece of paper in 10 minutes flat.
I mean, what I find fascinating just now is if we replace the word athlete with entrepreneur, it would be exactly the same story. Like, if you're an entrepreneur, the more original you are, the better you are as an entrepreneur. If you are willing to take the discomfort, and Ned and I talk about this a lot on the podcast, you are going to most likely build a great company, right? So I find it amazing that we could just use the same conversation for entrepreneurship, which is also part of the podcast from time to time. So yeah, I love all those golden nuggets. They're amazing. Thank you, Grant. Yeah.
and talking about that, so you've done some hard stuff. You've been an athlete. You got killed in the ocean. You've been through stuff. How hard is it being a coach? And maybe we can switch a little bit. Like, you run your own business, like you run. So as I told you, Grant, my business just failed. And, while it wasn't like a death, it was painful, man. Like, it wasn't the ocean holding me down, but it was painful mentally. It was hard. Marcus has been through it. He runs his own business. He's invested in businesses. We've seen it. In reality, Grant, you've been running your own business for a long time as a coach. How is it, man?
Yeah, it's not easy. I've been a coach for a long time. It's been full time since I think the year 2000, maybe 2001, 2002, something like that. So it's been a long time, and there's been some skinny periods, man, like where I'm sailing close to the wind, but the interesting thing is, and certainly since this experience, it's like, I've realized in my own skin, I'm not fully giving myself to this. What am I scared of losing here? What's to actually be lost? And what am I failing to gain? And what potential am I pissing away, so to speak, in my trying to play this safe? And that's part of the reason why I reached out to you recently, Ned, on what needs to be done to make my passion more known in the world. And you were really gracious in sharing some information about what I could do, and these sorts of things are part of that. But at the end of the day, it's like, what is there to lose? I mean, because the only thing that you're going to lose is, once again, a subtraction. Like, if I lose all my connections to playing it safe and I fully come out as myself, which is what I've been doing for the last 3 months, and through my writing, more authenticity, more vulnerability, more truth, more speak without forked tongue. It's like, the more I do that, the more I'm starting to feel like I'm actually bringing my purpose, my potential, the possibility, and the excitement and the curiosity and the aliveness of a small child again. Like, I'm actually really excited. So whether it's successful or not doesn't matter, because now I'm stepping into my actual own purpose, what I'm here for. And I think each one of us has that. And in the business world, I'm almost certain that that's true for each person. How do I sever myself from the potential? And am I looking at this authentically? Am I looking at this vulnerably, truthfully? And what can I learn about myself? And what can I bring to other people? And what can I give? And I think when we really start to give, I think, that's when I believe that we will be rewarded. That's the trust that I'm starting to come to in my own life.
And has that been successful for you as a coach, as a business?
It's interesting, when Aeromax was together as a squad in Lennox Head, I kind of forgot myself in a way, and I was just there, and I didn't actually do anything to create that group, but the culture of what built there grew the success of that group. So there was a period between about 2010 and I want to say 2014 where it was on fire. They were winning, placing all the time, like the group. They were nonstop, and it was all about culture. And I think I played a part in that, once again, by allowing people to be who they were without trying to push them around too much or directing traffic too much. But at the end of the day, I think success is the measure. If I had to talk about business, I would say that success is the measure of culture. What culture do you bring to it? And then if it falls over and things don't work out, to not lose that faith. I think that's probably the biggest lesson for all of us. If something falls over, that doesn't mean it's wrong. It just means that it didn't work. And I need to reconnect to my drivers, my internal drivers. What is my will? What is my desire? What is my purpose? What are the gifts that I bring? And then repurpose them all and start it all over again and keep doing it, because otherwise we're just turning up as someone we're not. And then our chances of falling over again, I think, are far greater.
This, Marcus, you said we could have talked about entrepreneur or athlete. The way you talk about your business, this is right. It's exactly the same. Be your, again, subtract what is not original. Do your thing, which is increasingly hard in a world where you can see other people's things and you think you need to be their thing, right? It's actually getting harder. Yeah, and that's maybe why you get rewarded more when you are authentic. When you are yourself, you get rewarded more, because without knowing it, people can understand it's hard to be different, because we can see everybody. I can see everybody in the world and I know what they are. So they not infect me, but their thoughts come in and I have to let it be. But it's not easy. Maybe you should also run a entrepreneuring coaching thing, Grant, as well, to get entrepreneurs out of their own heads.
Yeah, there's a spiritual teacher that I like very much who is a non-duality teacher. He says, what you are looking for is where you are looking from. Don't look any further afield. And it's like, it's just so true. Like, because at the end of the day, the responsibility starts and ends with each of us. And whenever we go out from ourselves, we get more lost, more confused, more discombobulated, more disassociated. And I think that's what's wrong with society at the moment. People are so disassociated from their own sense of self that they're losing the connect to their own instinctual drivers. And so I've made that my own personal metaphor for this coaching business. I am going to bring more and more of myself and subtract more and more of what isn't original to me, and find out what benefit people get from that. And I think that's for me, that's a worthy task.
talking about worthy tasks,
regardless of whether it's successful or not.
Yeah, and that's your point. Success is first across the finish line. Yes and no, it's not always. But for somebody who's just listening and is, hopefully enjoying, next time they go for a run, what is the 1 minute summary of not how they should think, but if you could give them a tip next time, somebody who's listened to this and thought, okay, it makes sense. How do I do it? Is it just a long process, or is there some quick 1 minute, one sentence, you know what I mean, thoughts that they should take in their head the next time they head out the door?
Yeah, there's 2 words that can encapsulate the whole thing. Live immediately. Live immediately. And so in a running context, that means you go out that door and you pay full attention to your environment. In the felt sense, what does the sun feel like? What does the temperature feel like? What do my shoes feel like? What do my legs feel like? All these, what's happening in my body? They're not mental questions. They're felt sense questions. And when you go into the body, when you fully embody that process, immediately you're present and you're enjoying. That's why you run. But if you do the opposite and go up into the head and start thinking about what happened at work, then you're not present with your running. And you can do a whole run. I know we all know that we can go out and run 20 Ks and get home and forget that we did it and can't even barely remember it because we're too busy thinking about what our boss said at lunchtime. You know what I mean? So there's it's that the second you walk out that door, it's live immediately. I'm going to be here in my body. It's that simple.
Grant, you're making it very tough for us, especially for me in this case, because usually we create 1 or maximum 2 short videos as a summary of the best parts of the recording per show. And now I think with your case, there are at least 10 of them. So it's gonna be tough to find the 1 or the 2 that, I think, yeah, thank you so much. Last question from my side is talking a bit about the future. Where is this all going? And if you could play mental framework God for a minute, or Buddha, if you choose another famous person in history, what do you want to do in order to see the future you want to see?
I want to do more of this. If you're talking about my personal desire or longing, it's to work with human beings in this realm. Let's free ourselves. Let's learn how to relax into our endeavors. Let's learn how to make a flow of them. Let's not make this thing so chunky and mechanical. That's my wish. That's my longing, and to work more with people in any performance genre, actually.
Yeah. So I have not a last question, but maybe a last statement and a thought. I think how, again, as I said, you were my coach and you got me to Kona. But in essence, that was the smallest part of it. I think I've said before, thank you to you for helping to change my mindset. I now, I don't always live immediately, Grant. I keep trying. It's not always the easiest thing to be able to do. But so I wanted to say thank you for that, because it really has, quite often you hear people say, oh, I met a dude and he changed my life, right? And, I don't want to be too over dramatic about it, but I have a much better sense of things now, and I let less things hurt me, even though they do. But a question to you, so to think about you, you're a coach, you run entrepreneur stuff, you do so much. How are you living? Are you able to live immediately at the moment? How is Grant is what I'm interested in, because you give so much out to other people. The writings that you do, I describe you sometimes as the Buddha of endurance, right? Which is kind of what you write about. But do you take enough time to be kind to yourself?
That's a great question. Wow. I'm getting better. The reason that I got here was as my own strongest inner critic, and that side of my psyche has pushed me into this exploration and this endeavor, which I'm really grateful for. But now, yes, slowly I'm becoming, as I come out from, let's call it hiding. I think we all hide, in a way, our vulnerabilities. And the more I let myself out, the more vulnerable I become, the more truth I speak. And I've had highly dysfunctional patterns in the past, even in relationship, very dysfunctional. You would call it even addictive in some ways. As I come to accept that side of my life and forgive that side, there's more freedom, there's more acceptance, there's more down regulation. I'm becoming easier with myself. So yes, slowly I'm becoming more giving to myself. And I do practice what I preach. I do breath work. I do meditation. I walk in bare feet. I ground. I dance. I try to become a more embodied human being, a more loving human being, a more open human being. But it's not easy because we're always going to rub up against the dark sides of ourselves, and that's okay too. Like sometimes I'm good, and sometimes I'm not so good.
That is, well, listen, man, we'll talk more offline and other times, but I maybe just to, in the world of reality is, I was going to say, if people are listening to this and want to get in contact with you, do you coach? Where should they go to get in contact with you? And do you coach ultra runners?
Yes. Yeah. You can contact me at grantgiles.com.au. Anytime. I'm always happy to. I do free chats for anybody who wants to, who's interested in what I do. And yeah, I do. I have ultra marathoners. I have actually a couple in Portugal, Madeira. A guy who got Jose, who got third in the 50 to 60 age group in Porto on the weekend, actually. So yeah, I do coach ultra marathon because it's huge now across the board, and I'm really enjoying that process because it's so fascinating. It's so exciting to be involved in that.
Well, Grant, thank you for being on the show. Ultra runners, everybody. I hope you got some good thoughts around this. It's about the brain. Grant, it was good to have you on, man.
We will put everything, all the links in the show notes and newsletter for sure, so they can reach out to you. And we'll also link to your Facebook posts if they're public. They can read. Great. I'm very grateful for you giving us your time. Very kind of you. Really appreciate it. A beautiful way to wrap up this episode.
Yeah, guys.
For being kind. I think that is a last good few thoughts there. Thanks, Grant. Appreciate you being on the show. And looking forward to hearing more from you. I mean, we follow you on Facebook, of course, but there's more to come, I'm sure, as you also develop on your own journey. All right, now we come to the last section of this amazing episode. We're going to hear more wisdom. I don't know if it's possible, but yes, it is possible. We are going to get it right from the mouth of Singapore's running Buddha, in this case, Ned Phillips. Ned, over to you. Let's hear your drop.
Well, thank you for that. Very kind. Guys, I hope you enjoyed Grant. Again, I found him 15 years ago. Again, I tell people he took me to Kona, but didn't. He changed my mind. And I think you can hear in that 1 hour conversation, he really has some amazing thoughts, but they're quite clear. Live immediately. He's great. Anyway, so I'm in Scotland as referenced. I'm at my house where I grew up. I was watching my dad live immediately at 87, up at 5 a.m, working for 10 hours, waiting for a 1 hour walk. He can still run. And, I riff quite a bit about getting older. So here's my little riff about my dad and about getting older. This one's called Dad. Dad, 87 years old, still crushing. 1 hour walk, 10 hours of work each day. Some days, 5K run. 0 signs of stopping. Because you don't have to stop. Why are we told to slow down? What made us think that? In this world today, we are told, rush to 60 years old, then retire. Stop. Do nothing. Like that's good for you. It can't be. Let's do more as we get older. That's what life should be. Because you don't stop because you get old. You get old because you stopped. Imagine if you kept running every day, no matter what. Rain, cold, heat, snow, old. If you always run, you'll never get old, right? What is old? Old is when you slow down. But what if you don't slow down? Then you can't get old. Running, the elixir of life. As long as you don't listen to the drums of modernity, go back to when you had to run to live. You can't sit back down then because you'll get eaten by a dinosaur. Smiley face. Not quite a dinosaur, but still. Today, it's not the dinosaur that is dangerous. It's the chair. It's the phone. They will kill you. Sitting, passively. It's the scariest thing in the world. Don't do it. It will make you old. Rise up, old people. LFG. Be like my dad. Up at 5, 10 hours work, 1 hour walk, and you'll live forever. A running life. Running to get younger. Imagine we could sell that. Oh, I just did. Get out there, Ned.
Thanks, Ned. That one resonates a lot with me. Now that I'm in Germany, I see a lot of old people. I have to say, it is scary to watch the society age in a way that I think you could do differently. But I'm glad that your dad is doing it the way he's doing it.
Seriously, man, like I got up to go for my run at 5:30, and when I got up, he stands at his desk, like he doesn't even sit, he stands. And then I got back, he said, let's go for a walk, and we're out hustling, and sure, he's going to die. Like, I get it. He's 87. He's going to die at some point. I get it. But yeah, let's not take it, people. Let's get out there. Let's get out there.
Grant, thank you so much for joining us, for being on the show. Love what you said. And yeah, I have a good feeling about this. What you're doing, of course, is already proven that it's good, but I'm saying the episode also is amazing. So thank you so much for being on the show.
No, thanks so much for having me. Love it, guys. Love talking about it. It just brings out the juice, and I love feeling it.
Awesome. Thank you, Grant.
Immediately.
Thank you, man. And thank you, everybody, for listening. We will see you next time on episode 29.